everyone. I'm Jeremy Butler. I'm the Chief Executive Officer of Iraq and Afghanistan Veterans of America. I really appreciate you joining us. I've been with IAVA for almost 5 years now. Took over as CEO about 1.5 years ago. I'm a Navy veteran. I joined the Navy back in '99, served on active duty until about 2005, and continue to serve in the reserves now. If you're not familiar with IAVA, I'll tell you a quick bit about IAVA before moving on to introducing our guests that are with us today. IAVA was founded back in 2004. We fight nationally on behalf of post 9/11 veterans, and we do that primarily through 3 primary fields of action. We do a lot of advocacy work, working with legislators, members of Congress, the administration, Department of Defense, Department of Veterans Affairs down in Washington, D.C. We also have a direct support program that we call our Quick Reaction Force that provides, works directly with veterans and their families to make sure that the veterans are getting whatever help that they need. That's a 24/7, 365-day-a-year program. Veterans can call it directly. They can go online to IAVA.org to get information and request that a call come into them at a time of their setting. So it's really flexible program. We'll be posting some links on everything that we talk about throughout this conversation to include QRF, so you should see that in the comments. Lastly, the other third major thing that IAVA does is we try and communicate nationally, talk to civilians, talk to military, talk to veterans, talk to their families, talk to supporters of military and veterans, to teach them, keep them educated about what's going on in our community, where we need help, where we need them to reach out to their members of Congress, reach out to the administration, whatever it might be, to make sure that veterans are getting the things that they need. A lot of that communication spans a lot of different topics, and one of those topics is what we're going to be here to talk about today, and that's specifically voting and a lot of issues around voting. We also want to answer your questions. So as I said, we'll be posting information that we talk about in the comments there on Facebook, but also please feel free to post any questions that you have. I don't know if we'll be able to get to all of them, but we'll try and get to as many of them as we can as we go through the 30 minutes, 45 minutes, hour, however long. I think we're going to try and stay with you here for as long as we can to cover as much information as possible. So with that, I'll pause for a second, give a quick introduction to the 2 that are joining me, and then ask them to provide a little bit of their own personal background and a background on the organization that they represent. Joined by 2 wonderful supporters today, Maggie Seymour of Veterans for American Ideals and Courtney Carden of Power the Polls. Really appreciate you both joining us. And as I said, I'm going to turn it over to each of you here, if you could, for a brief intro from yourselves about yourselves and your organizations. And Courtney, if you don't mind, we'll start with you, please. If we didn't lose you. All right, why don't we switch over? Maggie, why don't we start?
Yeah, of course. It's very 2020. I am Maggie Seymour, and thanks everyone for coming to this virtually from wherever you may be. I am a Marine Corps vet. I spent 10 years on active duty in the Marine Corps and with a couple deployments overseas. I was in the intel world, and I actually still am a reservist as well for the Marine Corps. And I currently work doing some research and consulting and contracting for some government contracts. But I am here today on behalf of Veterans for American Ideals, which is an initiative of human rights first. And VFII was founded on a simple principle that service doesn't stop when you take off the uniform, right? So when veterans transition to civilian life, what we hear is, we miss that meaning, we miss that being part of a team and fighting for something bigger than ourselves. And so VFII has been that home for me, working quite a bit on refugee issues, especially special immigrant visas. So helping the interpreters and the folks that helped us while we were overseas immigrate to the United States and get set up. But we have partnered with Power the Polls this election season to mobilize veterans, and we have a very ambitious goal, 1,000 veterans to volunteer as election officials or poll workers on November 3rd.
That's excellent. I think we keep losing and getting Courtney back, so I will hold off here for a second, and maybe we can just start talking a little bit, Maggie, while we hopefully get Courtney to join us back here in a minute. And I do want to come back around and talk a little bit more about some of the other work that VFAI does, and we'll come to that, but maybe we'll start with the polls. It looks like we've got Courtney now. So Courtney, if you're there, we'll turn it over to you for introductions, please.
I am here. Sorry about that. The funds of doing everything from home these days. Hi, I'm Courtney. I direct partnerships and influencer engagement for Power the Polls. We are a nonpartisan organization, a coalition of nonprofits and businesses who are seeking to recruit the next generation of poll workers, particularly a younger, more diverse generation. And we're so happy to be here today to partner with IAVA and all of the other organizations on this call. We consider, what we're asking people to do, civic service, and, we count our service-oriented partners like you guys among our greatest partners. And, as soon as we got on a call with the student veterans very early on in this process, and they said, what we really want to do is tell people to stop thanking us for our service and to do their own and sign up to be poll workers. We've seen that message resonate, and we're just so happy to have you all as partners. So thank you for having me.
That's great. Thank you. And I think you touched on something that I want to swing back to Maggie on, and that's the service after you hang up the uniform. That said, both Maggie and I continue to serve in the reserve, so it's kind of a dual-headed thing here. But before we get to talking about actual poll workers and everything, let's talk about even before that, just the basics of voting. And Maggie, and I'm sure you saw it when you've been on active duty and things like that, but voting, and Courtney, you mentioned how you're a nonpartisan organization, we're a nonpartisan organization, the FAI, similar. Voting has kind of become almost in some ways kind of a partisan issue, but Maggie, do you want to speak to maybe just your experiences and thoughts on voting from time in the military, how it was treated there, and the correlations to today?
Yeah, I mean, it's political, but it's not partisan. It's a civic responsibility, civic duty. And, I was lucky enough when we were, I think, fourth grade or something, we had a little mock election, and I got to write my choice for president on like some Lisa Frank stationery. And that has always just really stuck with me of like, I was super excited to vote, and I think of that scene in The Breakfast Club where the nerd has a fake ID and he says, "Why do you have a fake ID?" He says, "So I can vote." And it's like, I was kind of that nerd growing up. I never committed voter fraud, just to be clear, but I did. I was very excited to vote. And then I left home when I was 18. So I voted by mail for like the last, 10, 15 years. I don't want to age myself, but and then serving in the Marine Corps, we have a voting officer, and it was like every day you'd get that email saying, if you're in Maryland, like vote today. And it was like constant reminders. And then on election day, we typically voted absentee or by mail. But it was like a little part where it was like the one day you could choose your bosses. So much of military life is doing what you're told, and the hierarchy, and well, that guy or gal outranks me, so they get to tell me what to do. And it's like that one day you get a little taste of like independence. You say, no, I'm going to choose my boss today, which I always thought was very, very cool, and especially voting while abroad. And the military is not partisan, and we're not allowed to talk partisan politics. But on that day, we got to be very civic minded, and we got to vote our next leaders, which was really awesome.
Absolutely, and I love that. It's political, not partisan. That's a good line, and also any reference to The Breakfast Club is always very good.
You can have both.
So along those lines, that's what kind of led to IAVA getting involved into this issue specifically this year. We always have wanted to try and educate military and veteran voters about what's going on in our community, the ways that they can help influence legislation that really supports veterans nationally, really, and veterans of all eras, not just post 9/11 veterans. And as we were approaching the presidential election, especially as the pandemic was arising, we realized we really wanted to do as much as we can to kind of push forward a positive narrative to make sure everyone was as connected to the election as possible. And that's what led to us. We started something just called a Vote Hub. Very simple. A lot of organizations have this type of thing. It's basically you just go there, you pick your state, and you can make sure that you're registered, that you know where your polling site is. Very straightforward. And then a little later, we kind of realized that there was more to it. And that's where I want to turn to Courtney. And that's the poll worker side of things. I feel like, similar to what Maggie was talking about, I voted absentee many years in the military. I voted when I first had the chance. Never really gave any thought to the poll workers, other than to, the kind of standard assumption that it's retirees. It was always kind of a cute little thing. You assume that that was just something that they loved. But this year, it very quickly became really kind of an integral part of this election. And that really led to not only a lot of organizations looking to do this, but actually you guys starting an entire organization. Is that right?
Yeah, so we're a brand new organization. We started in like, I think we officially launched in the end of June, early July, and it's very much a build the plane while you're flying it initiative. But we have the same sentiment, and basically we love the poll workers that show up year after year, and really consider this part of their way of giving back, and have for election cycle after election cycle. And we love them so much that we actually don't want them to do it in the middle of a pandemic when so many are in that high risk category. And watching the service community actually step up in the way that they have, one of our partners, the Secure Family Initiatives, is actually leading the effort to lobby secretaries of state in different states to allow military partners and spouses who are, with their partners on base in a state that's maybe not their residence, to be able to serve as poll workers in the place where they're stationed. So there's a lot of effort by the military community to sort of expand who can step up and do this type of service. So it's really, really incredible. And yeah, our focus is definitely on creating a broader, diverse coalition of people who are willing to do this civic service, because we know that people who step up and serve as poll workers early on tend to be more consistent voters, tend to be more engaged in civic life, and tend to feel more patriotic about this service. So we think that's a very core principle about serving as a poll worker, for sure.
Absolutely. And I know I've learned quite a bit just in the last few weeks. I went and registered or signed up, I guess I should say, to be a poll worker as well. Maybe 3 weeks ago. I live in Manhattan here in New York City. Still waiting to find out if they're going to accept me. I kind of feel like, I don't know, it's like a bachelor type of thing here going, like I'm fingers crossed that they want me. I don't know. All I've got is a pending notice from the city. But my point in all this is that I kind of learned how complex actually working the polls is. Like from the voting standpoint, it's run by the states. So you basically have 50 different organizations, if you will, handling elections there. Poll worker, it gets a lot more complex than that. Do you have any insight, or can you talk about how it kind of varies across the country, or I don't know, just some thoughts on how much it varies from area to area?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, local election administrators are like the backbone of our elections. So, and they work very hard, and they have to oversee elections county to county. So, we saw the poll worker shortage play out in the primaries when Kentucky had to consolidate each county into just one single polling place because they didn't have enough poll workers there. So the requirements do vary. That's why, people come to our website and we're like, great, thank you so much for signing up. Now, please actually finish your application for your local county, because we have to apply to our local counties because it's a diffuse system. And so we are here to make sure that people can get through that application process and get timely notifications of trainings and placement opportunities. So we do ask, many people are in your seat because there are a lot of people who want to sign up and work in New York City. And so we ask people, be patient, but be persistent. So we are working hand in glove with election administrators to make sure their needs are met. But also just signing up to be a poll worker is really helpful for things like the Secure Family Initiative's efforts, where we're trying to sort of expand who can actually serve as poll workers. So there aren't shortages on a county by county level basis, and there's actually opportunity to recruit statewide. So really adding your name to the big funnel of people who are willing to serve as poll workers is helpful in and of itself, because you're basically joining a giant effort of people who are willing to step up and do this type of service. So even just signing up, if you don't get placed, is still a good thing.
Excellent. That's good to know. I appreciate that. And Maggie, you've actually served as a poll worker, as I understand. You kind of broke the mold, got in there, lowered the average age of our poll workers. So what was your experience like?
Yeah, I served as a poll worker in my first election, actually, up in Chicago. I went to school up in Chicago, like you, proud Illinoisan, or Illini, and I signed up. I think it was probably a little bit for the money. You got paid at maybe $100, which when you're 18 and in college, is a night out. So it's very, very early wake up. It was like a 4 or 5 a.m. wake up. I remember it being very cold in Chicago. I slipped on the ice, I believe, but it was pretty straightforward. I had gone to training maybe the week or two before. It was in person back when we used to do in-person things. And I was the youngest person there by about 45 years. But it was very cool because these, and they were mostly women actually, who had volunteered year after year. And they just, they just really took the election process seriously, right? So I was in a pretty low density county, so we didn't have a lot of traffic throughout the day. But at the end, when it came time to to close the polls and to get those ballots to the people that needed them to be counted, it was all business. And it was really cool to see these 67-year-old women just just taking charge and just doing exactly what everyone needs to do to protect a democracy, to protect an election. And it was a really enlightening experience for me, and it was a great day of service. And I got $100 and out of class that day too, so that was pretty cool.
I was gonna say, yeah, the pay part is good, and I know that varies quite a bit from
Yeah.
area. But I did notice that on New York. Excellent. Let's see. And I think you sort of touched on a good thing. I think, right now we're dealing with so much misinformation and disinformation out there and everything. The more that I think people are actually involved in the process, they're going to understand, or maybe have a better understanding of what is fake information that's being put out there, especially if you work at the polls, you understand what it is. You understand that it's maybe not nearly as easy as some people think to vote twice, or to have any sort of fraud going on in the polls.
Yeah.
I was going to have a question in there, but then I didn't.
Yeah. No, that was something I study international relations as my background. And when I was deployed in both Iraq and Afghanistan, we covered election security. And it was, I don't think people in the United States, and this is a good reflection of our country, quite understand how precious an election is. And you have countries where they don't believe in the election because the election is rigged, and there is voter fraud, there is widespread fraud and misuse. And so in the United States, we have a system that there's no perfect system, but it's a good system. It's very secure. There are safeguards against voter fraud and misuse, misactivity, but we have to protect that. We have to protect that by being poll workers, and we have to protect that by making sure that we spread and believe and base our opinions off information that's valid and sound, so that we don't end up like one of those countries where we can't even trust, an election.
Yeah, and that's a really good point, especially for the military members, families, and veterans that are out there. That a lot of us have deployed to support elections in other countries, and I think you really sometimes that can help you understand just what a special system we have here. That it is, generally. You accept the results. There's, we hear so much about contested results in other countries. And that's, in general, and fingers crossed it continues, that has not been an issue that we have had here in the U.S. Which also makes me think about turnout. I feel that that's one of these issues. And Courtney, I don't know if you have any thoughts on this. This one's a bit of a curveball, but, turnout to elections in general haven't been all that high. And I think a presidential election, 60% is considered good. For a midterm, it's 50%, and maybe even less than that, which is surprising, I think. We seem to be such a divided country, and everyone's got so many opinions. You would think maybe more people would show up to vote.
Yeah, absolutely. And, to Maggie's point, I think that's a testament to like the strength of our system, right? There are people who feel much more comfortable posting on social media about their political opinions than actually showing up and casting a ballot. We're hopeful that, the tides are turning and people are understanding just how fragile democracy can be. Obviously, I don't need to tell anyone on this call that, given, what you and Maggie just said about sort of the need to deploy service members to actually safeguard elections in other places. So I think if you have questions about learning, I think if you are interested in learning more about sort of the disinformation or the misinformation out there, the best way to learn is just to sign up and know how the process works. And I think this epidemic, this global pandemic is giving us an opportunity to really engage the next generation of voters and give them a chance to get out of the house and get paid. As Maggie said, in some places you can be as young as 16 to work, and you can make as much as, I think, upwards of $350 for a day. I mean, it's a long day, right? You are earning that pay, but you're learning about how your system works. And, the most important person in the democracy is not the president, it's the citizens. And so, it's up to everybody to really cast their vote. And as Maggie said, pick their bosses. And it's a nice opportunity to sort of know that you get that chance to weigh in on something that's important and meaningful, like the direction of the country.
Absolutely. And I think this is a unique election, I think, in some ways, in that we may be very well shaping the way elections are handled in the US for many, many years to come, with a big change in mail-in voting, absentee voting, changing perhaps the demographics of who serves as poll workers and things like that. I feel like there really could be a lot of changes here. Now, you did mention one thing here that I did want to ask, because I realize I don't know the answer to this. If you are a poll worker, when do you vote? Do you vote like on a break on your day, or early vote, or how does that work?
It's a great question. The answer is, as so many of the answers are, it depends, but oftentimes poll workers end up casting their ballots early. I'm sure Maggie can tell you when she voted, but that's generally, they cast their ballots early, maybe even first in line when they're opening the polls, but generally there's are provisions to ensure that poll workers can cast their ballot on election day if that's what they want, or early if that's what their states provide for.
Nice. And last, before we shift gears a little bit, and actually one thing I want to throw out, just a reminder, we'd love to take any questions that people have. So if you've got questions, please put them in to the comments and we'll try and get to them. The one other thing that I was going to ask Courtney, has there been talk nationally sort of in terms of protecting poll workers? Obviously, we talk a lot about how voters can protect themselves, but ideally they'll be in and out 5, 10, 15 minutes, whatever it may be, but poll workers are, it's a long day for them. So is there much of a plan or discussion as to how poll workers can best take care of themselves?
Definitely. This is top of mind for us. Part of our corporate partnership is also working with corporate partners who are willing to donate PPE, working with election administration officials to make sure their needs for PPE are met. This is about carrying forth free, fair, and safe elections for everyone, particularly the people who decide to get on the front lines of the democracy process. And so ensuring that they have all of the safety equipment they need, ensuring that social distancing protocols are adhered to, that we are discussing and refining tactics in all places all the time. We're so grateful to partners like the NBA who have come along and said that they're going to offer, large stadiums as big polling places for people who do want to vote in person. So we are talking about that constantly, and it is definitely a major issue and concern, and something that we are addressing, because we want all of our recruits to show up and feel safe and feel empowered to make this the best, most efficient election that they can.
Excellent. That's good to hear, especially if New York ends up accepting me to be a poll worker. But I had confidence. I do want to shift gears briefly back to you, Maggie. Could you tell us a little bit more? I've known about this. It's like one of these issues that Veterans for American Ideals works very hard and specifically on, and I feel it's one of those that even within the military and the veteran community, there's not much known about the Special Immigrant Visa Program. Could you just kind of give everyone an overview of what that is and what you all are doing on that subject?
Yeah, so the Special Immigrant Visa Program, essentially what it does is it gives special visas, just like it says, SIVs, to folks that have helped the United States in some way, right? So there's a number of ways you can come to this country, which is great, right? You can come on an education visa, a fiance visa. Special Immigrant Visa is something that we hold for folks like interpreters, right? So when I was deployed in Iraq, one of the coolest things we did was a rescue mission. We supported a rescue mission for Captain Scott Spiker, who was a pilot, had been shot down about 20 years earlier. His remains were never found. There was a lot of controversy over whether or not he was still alive, whether he's being held captive. And an interpreter, a human source, was what led us to find his eventual remains and give some closure to his family, right? So that Iraqi citizen helped us find a lost American, right? What more rewarding mission can you be on? And those things happened every single day. In the intel field, our human sources routinely prove to be the most consistent, the most useful, giving us intel to not only advance tactically, but also to protect our own forces, right? So that agreement, those folks are often left vulnerable when we leave, or when the enemy forces, or even sometimes the government forces, find out that they have worked with the Americans or with the United States. They're at risk, they're at threat. So that's our way of paying them back for saying, thank you. You provided a service, language service, networking service, knowledge that we do not have. You saved our lives. You helped us win a battle. And this is what we'll do for you. We will help bring you to this country, and we will help set you up for success here. So it's almost a contract, and it's a contract that's not only our moral duty, but at a very practical level. We need those sources. If we ever stand a chance at winning any sort of operation, whether it be kinetic or non-kinetic, we need the folks on the ground. So that program is vital to not only upholding American values, but also to increase national security. And then from a non-military perspective, these serve as basically de facto cultural exchanges, right? So the State Department has official cultural exchanges. We've been doing it for years. It was an integral part of our Cold War strategy. Not to get too foreign policy nerd on you, but when people come to the United States and see what a vibrant, diverse, and strong nation this can be, and what a great culture this can be, they tell their friends, right? So it's a goodwill thing. And when we bring the more refugees and immigrants that we can welcome in and set up and support to become American citizens or residents, the better our standing is across the globe, and the more secure our nation is. Plus, the more diverse our communities are, which is always great, right? We get bored if we were all the same people. So.
No, and that's incredible. And I do hear so many stories from American service members who said that, their interpreter, their fixer, sometimes it's the same person, they made the difference between mission failure and success all the time. It wasn't as if this was just some administrative person kind of filling a role. Like, they really were not only putting themselves in almost just as much harm as the American service members were doing it, because they were going out on these raids and things like that, but they're also doing it unarmed. They're not allowed to carry a weapon into these things. Not to mention that if they're identified, they were often then targeted for working with Americans. So yeah, I think you did a really good job there. Like, there's a whole variety of reasons why this is an important and appropriate thing to do. So what's the problem? I mean, is this a controversial issue?
Unfortunately, yes. Not completely. It's bipartisan. We have bipartisan support because we have, vets tend to lean right. And immigrant rights folks tend to lean left. But this is one of those beautiful issues that there's so many benefits that it shouldn't be political. It should just be something that, if you're doing it for national security, great. If you're doing it because we have that moral obligation to these men and women that have helped us, that's great too. Whatever your motivations are, there's a reason for that. So it shouldn't be controversial. Unfortunately, it is. There's a lot of misinformation about refugees. There's a lot of misinformation about what they cost our system, which is really very little, especially when you compare to what immigrants bring to our system, to include economic benefits. There's been a ton of studies out there that show that immigration, and especially refugees, are the exact type of people that an economy needs. So most of the controversy comes from misinformation. There's this idea that what was one of the quotes, that our country's full. I have seen this country. Our country is not full. It is huge. I actually ran across this country. There is plenty of space. So I think a lot of the controversy just comes from kind of those maybe xenophobic, maybe just misinformation overall. But parties from both sides have come together a number of times to make these things work, to get those numbers back up. Unfortunately, over the past few years, especially in the past 3 years, our refugee numbers have been really embarrassingly low. And so we need both sides of the aisle to come together and say, no, this is a program we need to support and we need to increase.
Nice. And so in a second here, we'll switch over and I'm going to ask Hannah from our office to start asking some of the questions that we're getting online and stuff. But before I do that, sort of if we're a little kind of midway period here, I'll go to both of you on this. And Maggie, for you, talking about the special immigrant visa program, what should people know that they can do or should do? Is it, reaching out to members of Congress to tell them to support increasing the numbers? Is there a website?
Yeah.
All the above?
Yeah, so when I left the Marine Corps, I got involved in advocacy, and it was amazing to me. You can just talk to your member of Congress. That's what they're there for. They're here to support us. And especially veterans. Veterans still have, it's not an open door policy, but it's about as close as you'll get. So yeah, contact your representative. Sorry, I'm getting a little beep beep. Can you still hear me? Okay. Contact your members of Congress, write a letter to your editor in your local paper, write an op-ed, or contact VFAI and find out other ways to get involved. Meet a refugee family, host an event with folks who have the SIV visa or the special immigrant visa. Learn about the program and then go and advocate for it. And all that can be found out of our website too, after you volunteer to be a poll worker.
And that was going to be my next. So we'll make sure we're posting the VFAI information into the comments. But then Courtney, back to that same question for you. What's the best way for people to be signing up to be poll workers?
Yeah, well, just to echo Maggie, I mean, not only sign up to be a poll worker, but the reason we're asking people to sign up to be poll workers is so that they can help the people in their communities vote, right? So it's not just the president who's on the ballot, it's your local elected leaders. So you're getting a chance to really foster that relationship and help people sort of engage in that civic advocacy. The easiest way to become a poll worker is go to powerthepolls.org and sign up. We will, as long as you're in one of our targeted states where we're still filling needs, we will contact you in a matter of days. As I said, New York has a fair number of signups right now. So again, patient and persistent. But yeah, so you just sign up and we will help you make sure that you finished your application, alert you to training opportunities, and then, you just show up to work the polls. And it could be a really long day, it could be a half shift, but anytime you spend there helping set up the staffing place, helping tabulate votes, you're making sure that the democratic process is working. So.
And one last question on that. I imagine we're running up to a deadline in terms of when people need to sign up. Like for absentee voting, people have a little bit more time. They still should be requesting their ballots as soon as possible. And I imagine for poll working, it's much sooner because you have to go through training and stuff like that. And I know the answer is it's going to vary state by state, but do you have a sense of just how close to the general deadlines we might be?
Well, you nailed it. It definitely depends. Many counties have rolling deadlines, so we encourage you to sign up as soon as possible. It's going to maximize your chances of getting picked and placed. So definitely sign up. We are going to be recruiting through October, so keep signing up. Again, as I said, even just putting your name down and offering to serve is helpful. So you may get selected, so don't do it if you don't want to actually be a poll worker. But we do encourage young people and people who feel safe and secure going out to take this opportunity to get out of the house, get paid, and learn a little bit about how our democracy works.
Excellent. All right. And with that, now I will ask Hannah to give us some questions that we might be getting.
Sure. Thanks, Jeremy. The first question that came in is, if I can't work on November 3rd, can I still sign up to be a poll worker?
If you cannot sign up, if you cannot work on election day, it probably doesn't make sense to sign up to be a poll worker. But the best thing you can do is recruit other people to show up in your stead. So help us help us recruit other poll workers, and that would be great.
Can I add on to that? Is there, if you are able to work on November 3rd, but you sign up in general, is there also a chance that you may be asked to work during early voting periods and stuff like that? So could you actually end up working multiple days?
Great question. Same answer. It totally depends. Yes, you could. There are some places where people will ask you to staff early in-person polling locations. It just depends on the county. Most cases, there's gonna be, you shouldn't sign up if you can't work on election day. It's generally pretty good guidance.
All right, Hannah, again to you. Thank you.
Great. The next question that came in is, why are you looking specifically for veterans to serve as poll workers this year?
The short answer is we're not specifically looking for veterans, but we're counting on our veteran partners because we know that they understand the importance of civic service and duty. And frankly, we want people that will show up on election day. And veterans tend to be pretty good at fulfilling their words. So, you know, we're more than happy to be partnered and really honored that so many great organizations that are here today want to participate in this effort.
Yeah, I mean, I joke that we've spent enough time in gas mask and got enough vaccines and other safeguards against a coronavirus that we may be the safest population. Understanding that some vets, you know, there are compromised veterans out there, absolutely, that this may not be a great fit for you. For me, I was lucky enough to get out of the military service without many, at least lung issues, right? So I'm a lower risk, lower age. Post 9/11, we saw an influx of young Americans joining the military service, which was really, really awesome. So we have this whole body of veterans who, like Courtney said, are ready to serve. You know, and they know how to wake up early. They know how to follow orders. They know how to make sure that people are doing what they're supposed to be doing and standing in a line. I mean, these are all things that we were taught at boot camp or OCS. So we're kind of prime trained for this. And like Courtney said, just being civic minded. You know, knowing what we know and seeing how precious these elections are. I think that our group especially maybe just has a different perspective on things, right? And can sign up to help when our country needs it.
Yeah, and I would just add that, you know, I think so many veterans, after they hang up the uniform, they want to continue to serve their country in some way. And this is another opportunity that, you know, like me, I hadn't thought about it at all. You know, 3 months ago, that would not have crossed my mind as a really good way to serve your country. And this one really is. And hopefully it's not just getting veterans out, you know, it's that they'll get their friends and their families and hopefully lead others to not only realize that this is needed, but it is a really valuable service that they're going to provide to their country and their local community. To Courtney's point, like, we forget sometimes that there's a lot more at stake than just a presidential election. There's a lot of other local elections that in many ways really affect people's day-to-day lives a lot more so than what happens every 4 years.
Great. The next question that came in is, what prompted IAVA to build the Vote Hub, and what are the goals surrounding that, and how can folks get involved?
Yeah, it's very straightforward. It really was just to try and make sure that veterans, and really anybody, but, you know, as a veteran organization, you know, we were targeting veterans, but to my point that I just said, you know, it was really just to make sure that veterans had what they needed to get registered to vote, to turn out to vote by mail if they wanted to. As we were talking about, some veterans are dealing with compromised lung issues from, you know, be it Agent Orange back in Vietnam to burn pits and other toxic exposures in the post 9/11 era. So they may be concerned about voting in person. So there may be more of an interest, and we know there's more of an interest in early voting and absentee voting, to make sure that they have the information about that. And then we added on the poll worker part, as we talked about, because we're hearing so much about this. So again, you know, IAVA built its Vote Hub not to take away from anywhere else. You know, I honestly don't care if you go to the Vote Hub or if you go to Power to the Polls or you go somewhere else. The goal really is to just get everyone as much information as easily as possible to make sure that they have the information they need. So our goal is really just to maximize turnout amongst everybody.
Great. And then the final question that we have at this point, and I know you guys have done a great job of going over some of this, but maybe some final words of wisdom or insights. What advice do you have for people who want to sign up to be a poll worker to help prepare them for the experience?
Yeah, it's a great question. So if you go to powerthepolls.org, we have a whole facts section, FAQ section that will answer many questions. You can also email info@powerthepolls.org if you have specific questions about your jurisdiction or how to prepare. And we will be actually sending out content and videos that explain what to do in the day of the life of a poll worker, how to serve as a poll worker safely. Basically, take the normal precautions you would when you're going out in the middle of the pandemic, and also, arrive on time, listen to your supervisors, and really just do what you need to do to make sure that your community can cast their ballot.
Maggie, any
Wash your hands
lessons
and show up
learned?
on
Yeah, from
time.
sorry, say that
Yeah,
again.
I mean,
Cut you off.
yeah, wash your hands and show up on time. Marine Corps
Yes,
logic.
that.
It's pretty simple. I will be taking a few extra precautions, not just for myself, but for the poll workers that I'm with. So I'll be quarantining the 2 weeks before election day. So send me your Netflix recommendations, and plenty of hand washing, just maintaining that space. But I'm really looking forward to being with my fellow poll workers, my fellow election officials, getting to know them, perhaps even convincing maybe my partner or someone else to join me on election day, just so I'm not bored, and then getting a good night's rest the night before, ready to observe democracy in all her glory.
Absolutely. No, that is great. Really appreciate both of you taking the time to speak with us today. I'll give each of you a chance. Oh, one thing that I almost forgot is that today is Constitution Day, which is good timing for this event. I'd like to say that we planned it that way, but I don't think that's the case. But yeah, 1787, the Constitution was signed, and here we are talking about voting, which in many ways is what the Constitution was all about and the reason for this. So good timing there. Really do appreciate everyone that tuned in to watch. Maggie and Courtney, thank you both for being with us here today and everything that you're doing to make this hopefully the most free and fair elections that this country has had, and we can continue down that path. One plug that I want to give out is that as everyone continues to pay attention to everything, hopefully we'll be putting out some information soon about a veterans-focused presidential town hall that we're hoping to have IAVA and a number of other veteran-serving organizations. Looks like we'll be able to get both the president and Vice President Biden to answer some questions from a variety of veteran organizations, and we'll have that, hopefully more information coming to you soon, so look forward to that. But stay tuned. Please check out Power the Polls, check out Veterans for American Ideals, and if either of you, give you a second, if you have any closing comments, some last minute advice or websites you want to plug. Maggie, we'll start with you.
Yeah, VFAI.org as part of Human Rights First. There you can also sign up if you're a vet through our portal, or if you can't remember that, Power the Polls works just fine. But we do have our sign up at powerthepolls.vfai.org.
Courtney.
Yeah, absolutely. Powerthepolls.org. Definitely use the VFAI link. And any questions you have really on just info@powerthepolls.org, and we're happy to answer any of your questions. And then just thank you so much for having us.
Excellent. And we're at IAVA.org, very easy. And from there, you can find our Vote Hub. You can also find the Quick Reaction Force if you're a veteran or the family of a veteran that's looking for any sort of support. We're there 24/7, 365. So again, thank you, Maggie and Courtney. Really appreciate you being with us here today, and look forward to talking with you both again soon.
Thank you so much.
All right. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.